Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our board meeting today, Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022. I call the meeting to order at 5:35. At this time, I will continue with the roll call. Mrs. Gilpas, Mrs. Garcia, Mr. Ocampo, Mr. Mercado. Here. Mr. Jimenez here. Next, we have the flag salute. Mr. Connie, can you please lead us with the flag salute?
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Connie. Mr. Connie, do you have any spotlights items today?
Yes, we have a couple of spotlights. First of all, this one.
Estela Mercado Rodríguez.
Well, good evening, Board President Jimenez, board members, Mr. Koenig, administrators. I'm not going to name you all because I'll waste my 1 minute that I have, 1 minute of fame. So I am Estela Mercado Rodriguez, transitional kindergarten teacher here in the district, vice president of the LSL Teachers Association. And what I want to spotlight this evening was our 8th year now of an incredible, successful collaboration piece that the LSL Teachers Association has had with the district. And this is the participation of professional development for teachers. And one of the things that we've been a big part of, and we had a lot of communication, productive conversations with our administrators, has been around the idea of teachers teaching teachers. And this has been a big piece for us. And the fact that this has been our 8th year of welcoming new teachers to the district and being responsible of co-creating agendas and days with district administration, with the different departments in the district, and some of our teachers as part of the professional development committee has been successful and incredible, and we've gotten tremendous feedback, and we get tremendous feedback. But I think a big honor for us is sort of seeing a lot of these new teachers coming back and participating as teacher leaders with their experience because of the experience that we provided for them mutually and together, obviously, in collaboration with everybody. And so I want to spotlight the New Teacher Academy again in its 8th year. Welcome on. I know that we had 32 teachers participate in the first 2 days of that. And I know that the 3rd day piece, which is not a 3rd day in the sense that, hey, come on a Saturday, but there the committee designed it a little bit differently this year, where they're going to be continuing that 3rd day in like, I think 2 or 3 day pieces after school, again, to get the teachers acclimated so that the teachers can kind of come back with a lot of those questions, and that the veteran teachers involved in this program can continue to further pass along that wisdom. So I know that, I mean, for me, that's one of the pieces that I'm very, very proud of, because I remember that initial conversation with Jeannie Herrick, with the godmother of new teachers teaching teachers, Angela Ramos, and myself. And so as the president in 2014, I orchestrated the dinner. So whenever you guys want to be taken out to dinner, I'm really good at that. But really, really excellent conversation, and the fact that district leadership sort of saw the beauty of that, of teachers being able to give back to other teachers to continue retaining this incredible talent in our district has been phenomenal. So I just want to highlight that and really thank all of us, because we continue that collaboration piece and moving that forward. And we look forward to our 9th year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, 8040.
Okay. Everybody, my name is Edie Porter. I'm here representing curriculum and instruction, but I'm also here to share with you the story of our LSL summer camp, our LSL space camp, designed around science as a lever for language and literacy. The purpose of the summer was to leverage content, science content, aligned to the California framework as well as standards, to create an opportunity for students to have something to talk about, to experience, taking that into reading, into writing. The best way for me to share that with you is through a little video. So I present to you LSL Space Camp, a movie. It starts slow.
3, 2, 1.
Right? I know, right? So that was a collaboration between myself and Mr. Lopez, as well as, of course, the instructional coaches and the lead teachers who went out of their way to share pictures, video. You couldn't see it very well, but the video that was playing, some of the students were able to go to the Hartnell Planetarium. And so one site decided to recreate their own planetarium. And so that's what you were viewing. The students used neon pens and activities, and so that all the students could go through and see their school site's planetarium. It was an amazing opportunity of taking an experience and applying it right into their own language and their own content. Another thing that I brought some artifacts, because I think what best way for you all to see it besides video is to see what students produced. So please, I don't know how we want to see that. I can hold on to it. You can kind of a break if you have that, whatever, but please take a look at it and you'll see a lot of writing. And also within that is a lot of language that happened. Finally, and this comes, one of our largest contributors here is Mr. Beeler, right? Our retired teacher who comes back and teaches summer school because of the idea of leveraging content to produce language and literacy opportunities for our students. So thank you to all the teachers that shared in Mr. Beeler. Finally, I just want to say a huge thank you to the staff, just the teachers, the district staff, the school site staff, the classified staff, certificated. It was just an amazing collaboration. This just represents the space camp side of summer school. So much more happened in summer school. Personally, what a beautiful project to get to come back to and lead, coming back from the county office. So thank you for your support. I have a little joke. Thank you for making that space for the LSL Space Camp. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. And then we have, I just put, I want to thank Mr. Connie for the invitation to be part of your district back to school convocation yesterday. I have welcoming words for staff this new school year. It was a well-organized event, and I had a great time. Thank you, Mr. Connie. I have the opportunity at this time to welcome back our students and parents to this new school year, 2022-2023. There might be challenges ahead, but with our efforts and dedication, we will be prepared. Everyone in the district is combined to continue to give our students the best education they deserve. We are Alifan, and together we are moving forward. Remember this word, collaboration. This word opens many doors to all us if we understand its meaning. We will continue to work together, staff, students, parents, and community to rebuild our district for all students. Thank you. Next. Yes. Now we will adopt the agenda. I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Mrs. Garcia, motion to adopt the agenda. Second motion,
I'll second.
Mr. Mercado. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed by 5 votes. Thank you. Okay, presentation 2022 results of cumulative state assessment, CAASPB and CAUPAC. Dr. Hernandez. Good evening, President Jimenez,
the members, Mr. Koenig, colleagues, and community members present. This is the first time I come to present to you for this school year. As we open the new school year, we will see that soon in public, we will see information pertaining to the release school assessments of students completed in 2022. So today I'm going to give you a preliminary presentation of the results that are unofficial, but will become public in the next few weeks. The first presentation or this presentation will cover information related to the CASP assessments that our students in 3rd to 6th grade take in English language arts, math, and our 5th graders in science, the California Science Test. The ELA and math is the SBAC, and all those are connected to the CASP system of assessments for California. I'll be talking with you about the summative results for students who took the LPAC at the end of the school year in 21-22 who are English learners during the school year. So today I will be sharing information that will be direct comparison, comparability, and reference. Again, we'll start with CASP. We'll talk about the results in English and charts, math, and science. In this school year, I am presenting to you as we open the school year information pertaining to the results for students in ELA math and science, comparing 21-22 to the most recent normal academic school year before pandemic, which was 18-19. We did not administer the test in 1920 and in 2021. Therefore, we're going back to 18-19, being the most recent normal year pre-pandemic. So as you can see, in English language arts, the percentage of students who met or exceeded standards in ELA in English language arts was 26 compared to 36 in 18-19. Mathematics, 16% of the students this past school year met or exceeded standards compared to 29 the most recent year when we were pre-pandemic. And in science, 11% of the students, again, this is the test that only the 5th grade students take. 11% of them on the California Standards Test, Science Test, met or exceeded standards compared to 12 in 18-19. So the green row shows you the difference between this past year and this recent student year. And comparing again, this is another view. I give it to you table format, and this is basically on the format you see ELA went from 36 to 26, math went from 29 to 16, and science went from 12 to 11%. So it's a different view of the same information. Here's a grade level comparison for English language arts. 29% of the students in 3rd grade in 19 met or exceeded, down to 17 in 22. 4th grade, 35% had met or exceeded, to 23 this past year. 5th and 6th grade, the change was lesser. We went from 36 to 40 in 5th, and from 42 to 35. I wanted to point out something. We keep in mind that pre-pandemic, the two grades we did here, the ones that had already established a foundation before the pandemic. 5th and 6th had an opportunity to be in school at least 3 years in the first second before we went into closure. So they have had a more solid start compared to the 3rd and 4th graders like last year. Their start, their foundation was more impacted because of the pandemic. The 5th and 6th graders had a lesser degree of loss. Math, we see a similar decline comparing 2019 to 2022. More drastic fewer students never exceeded compared to LA. So that's an area that requires attention. Obviously, again, you can see the same pattern. Third and fourth grade, the two grade levels are showed the most difference or decline percentage of students moving out city, as it was in 95. And then in fifth and sixth grade, you see that there was a drop of 1%. Sixth grade of 15%. So it's no 5%. So it's you can see the difference is lesser in those grades that students have before the pandemic. Here's a comparison that gives you a sense of where we are, where we have been since we started reporting this data to you, 2015. All the way back to 2015, you can see that the averages in 2022 are around where we were in 2015 and 16. So there was a decline to those averages. However, we did have a couple of schools, those highlighted in yellow, that actually maintained or improved comparing 2019 to 2022, particularly Montebello, maintained 45% average never exceeded standards. And Ruby actually improved from 42% to 42%. 36% in green Falasa community represents the percentage of the school that had highest percentage this past school year at never exceeded English language folks. This is a view for math. When you see the scores represent the return back to where we were around 2016. The school highlighted in green will was the one that had the highest percentage of students mathematics and exceed standards this past year. The science, here's the comparison. In science, the change was on as drastic compared to yellow and math. But the schools highlighted in yellow are schools that actually had a higher percentage in 2022 of students meeting our exceeding standards compared to 2019. And Kickside and Steinberg shared highest average on the test this past school year comparison to the other schools. So I would want to ask Mr. Carnegie, would you like me to separate questions and answers by the assessment or all at the end after I present my time?
Since FPAC and LPAC are two completely different assessments, so I think it would be a good idea to, if the board had any questions, to ask them now about the CAF, the Smarter Balance Assessment Test. First, before we do that, I'd just like to say these results were not a surprise. The assessments that we conducted during the year, during 21-22, indicated there'd been a lot of learning loss. And so, we didn't realize that we would be going back to the level we were at in 2016 or 2017. But it's something we expected to have a dramatic decrease in the performance of the kids. The important thing to remember about this right now is we've sort of renormed our baseline. Our baseline in 2019 was much higher, and we are starting out, basically we're starting out all over again from where we are now. So we'll be working hard, we'll get better, and we'll have better results in the spring. But this was something that was a direct result of the fact that the kids were learning remotely for a year and a half. So are there any questions about the FPAC results before we move on?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I don't think there's a surprise there that our students lost learning during the pandemic. And and I know you probably haven't gone there yet, but how do these scores compare to the STAR? I know a lot of districts hang their hat on the STAR Renaissance assessment. And I've given that assessment many times. So I'm wondering if you'll, in the future, maybe compare them, just because I know it's a local assessment, it's easy to give, but I don't know if they compare with each other.
So what I can do for now to send to you the first trimester results. Some results, we will be emphasizing next hours. Coming out of the studying assessment, there is a report that I can bring once released by the state that shows us where the kids are on the styrene Lexar range in comparison to the SPAC Lexar ranges. So I can bring that information as we delve into more understanding the progress. We are going to be moving from the area for the level expectation to actually understanding size. Those are available in those metrics, so I can bring that information to you.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, yes, the learning loss, and thank you. Some of my questions were answered by Mr. Koenig's comments. And this may not be a fair question, but I wanted to ask you, is it possible to calculate more or less if there had not been the 2-year interruption as to what our scores would be like now? For example, is there a certain percentage each year that without that interruption, kids grow, or in our district, would we have expected?
There are tools that we can use to estimate. So we can go back to reports that could provide us that based on the history of the assessment taken of the same students. So that when what we would do is, looking forward, we would just be looking at predicted value. So we would have to sort of make it up to sort of estimate what the growth would have been. I would not have a severe impact. So we are looking to what that would have been, and I think we will completely provide it to the minister. Unless you do that 100%.
Thank you. And I guess and I know that it's not going to happen out in our district because of the dedication of our teachers. But I mean, there was a 2-year interruption. And at some point, we're going to have to leave that back. And we can't keep saying the learning loss. We're there because it was just so recent. So we need to find out, well, where should we be so that I feel so, and I know I'm talking to the experts here, so that we can still anticipate growth and not so much, well, they didn't do because of learning loss. And I know the staff is working hard to do that. And so thank you for this report, and wait for the rest of the information.
No question? Mr. Ocampo? No question?
I just want to thank you for, sorry? Okay. Thank you for the report. And I think this point is well taken, when we start looking at progress, and instead of, the decline, which I guess was to be expected. I know Mr. Koenig at the convocation said that we got apparently, I don't know how much, but a lot of money. We got a lot of money from the government to look at figuring out how do you make up this learning loss. So I suppose that'll be a focus in the years to come. I don't recall what the amount was, but it was substantial, whatever it was. But yeah.
Yes, later on in the agenda, we're going to cover the changes in the budget from what was approved by the board in June, and we got basically it's extra money that we received from the state. A large part of it, about $16 million is earmarked to address learning loss. So this is we'll talk about that later on in the agenda.
No more questions?
Okay, so the second part of this presentation addresses the second part of the presentation addresses the other state assessment that students in our district state. This assessment is taken by students who are English learners, those who have not achieved the level of the classified, must take the summative with the assessment addresses student skills and fluency in the listening, speaking, reading, and writing in class and the class language. So this table basically shows you the total number of students based on ELA status as reported in the state during the first Wednesday of the quarter where we take a snapshot of enrollment districts. As you can see, Alpha, we had 63.7% of students. We can add the first column after the school names on the English learners. So the majority of the students out of the 7,851 were counted by the English learners, 64% of them. So that represents the percentage of kids that were earmarked to take the test. 64% were the ones earmarked to take the test in STEM, because it was still the learners from the students. So this is something to celebrate. Very, very important. 2021, I'm referring to the percentage compared to 2022 of students obtaining an overall score of 11. The overall score required to be considered for reclassification is the overall score of 4. As you can see in 2021, which is the word level 4 is a word that is highlighted in yellow. We had 7% or 349 students qualifying to be reclassified, compared to 11% in 2022 of students who took the test, or a number of 512 students. Something important to acknowledge, more than 115 more students reaching the criteria of a level 4. Attributable to the emphasis on language development, do things district. So we also can look at it from the top levels, increasing the percentage at levels 3 and 4, and decreasing the percentages at levels 2 and 1, which are the lower ones, which is the one we want to continue seeing. More students at the top and fewer students at the lower levels. So here's the percentage again of the family. Now 7% to 11% at level 4, 40% to 42% level 3. Those are the two levels that are really critical. So we have a high percentage of students at level 3 that we want to capitalize on support to make sure they get to a level 4 required for the classification of the school year. And then the decline, level 2 from 37 to 35, level 1 from 25 to 20. And this is by number in terms of the counts. We have presented earlier. This is something that is significant, and I will refer back to this for a review of the classification criteria. When I mentioned, as I wrote in this part of the presentation, as I opened this part of the presentation, I mentioned that the assessment addresses the 4 domains of language: listening, speaking, and reading loudly. And I want you to notice that the 2 domains that showed the highest performance at the all developed were listening and speaking, followed by writing and reading being the lowest. And I'll address that because that is going to be impacting what we do with our students who will be considered for reclassification. So you can see that the lowest domain here is reading. So again, real quickly, I'm going to remember our students who are English learners are determined to be English learners once the parents on the home knowledge survey indicate that they speak a language other than English at home. The students do, and then we have to identify with the initial outcome as either fully fluent English or English language. But this is what happens. And we're going back to this table with the domains. You see the reading domain being the lowest that well developed. It is our criteria locally. So not only on the state test, on the IPAC, do they need to be able to show a strong level of reading, we also need to show it on the state, on the local assessment or the district benchmark that we used as our local criteria in order to be able to classify. So you know that students first need to have a level 4 on the IPAC and overall. And you can have an overall 4 and still have reading being a low score. But as long as you get an overall 4, you can still be considered. But if the students then are tested on the local criteria, in this case is the style reading, and they don't meet the required decile or level, then they wouldn't be able to classify, which is the next thing. So in kinder through second grade, they need to show performance on the developmental reading assessment, the DIA. If they get a level 4 on the IPAC, they need to have a level 4 on the DIA in kinder. In first grade, they must have a level 10. And in second grade, they need to have a level 20. For 36, they need to have exiles on the style reading assessment, those levels. 450, at least 450 lexile points in third, and the rate to 800 lexile points in sixth grade. If they do not achieve those reading levels, even if they had attained a level 4 on the IPAC, they wouldn't be able to classify. So that's why reading is so vital. And we'll see how it impacts, obviously, not just the language test, but reading and counting grades. So here's the enrollment as we stand right now. It is fluctuating right now with drops that are being executed on ads based on students that are still being placed in classes. But we still have the highest count as of today as currently English learners, and it says 59%. But we have to realize that we have this number that is TBD, the last row, which will likely be ES as well. They're TBDs because they just came in, and we need to administer the initial IPAC to determine if they're fully fluent English proficient students or they're English learners. Historically, that TBD count turns into an EL count. So that 51% that you see that are currently sitting in classes as English learners, once we finalize our initial testing, which will happen by September 1st, it's likely to increase to 69%. 67 to 69%. With some that may be, so you can see IFEPs, we have 2% for IFEPs. We may have some tests initially fluent. This is another significant table to highlight. In 2021, I kind of reported to you that exiting sixth graders, those exiting sixth grade from ALSA, 418 students out of 1147, or 36, left ALSA with an English language status to be classified. In 2022, we see a significant jump with 535 students, or 52% of the students in the grade leaving us as we classified. We want to see that percent increase year by year. So we have the majority of the students leaving us sixth grade fluent in English, because you have those that were reclassified, plus those that were English only, plus the IFEPs. So you add all those, and you basically have the lower percentage not fluent, which are the 368 or 46% that didn't leave us classified. But we see that significant change from 36% in 2020-21 to 52% in 21-22. That is an important reason to celebrate. We want to go in that direction year to year. So this is the total count. Right now, we're looking at 512 students that achieved the level 4, and compared to 349 in 2021. Again, level 4 is the required level to be considered for reclassification. So more than 150 students, when we compare 21 to 22, reached the level 4 to be considered for reclassification. Those are the candidates by site, and these are the candidates in 2022 by grade level. You could see that comparing 21 and 22, there was not a huge significant change in terms of the percentage of count, in terms of the count in kinder, first, and second grade. But take a look at third grade and the change comparing 21 and 22. We had 26 candidates in third grade. This past year, 75 candidates. Fourth grade, 39 candidates. In 22, 93 candidates. In fifth grade, 71. And in 21, 120 in 22. So it's important to note those changes for the grades that made the greatest improvements. So what are the steps, the next steps in our improvement plan? So we have to make sure that all the actions that are included in our LCAP that are reflected in the school plan, so the SIP says, are executed. In particular, in this case, those related to actions, or goals 1 and 2, which are the ones related to academic progress. Goal 1 on the LCAP refers to progress in ELA and math. Goal 2 on the LCAP refers to progress for our English learners, and that's all reflected in the school plans as well. Continue to deliver professional development in LD, facilitated by ELD coaches, implement best practices in support of all ELs, monitor progress for all ELs towards classification, and provide EL academies and sessions. So these are some of the strategies or ideas that are part of our improvement plan, but they're not exclusive. We have more that are executed at the sites and additional ones that will be district level ones that need development. Considering all those extra funding sources discussing. Here are resources on the last page for educators and parents from the California Department of Education, classification resources, reference to the California English Learner Roadmap, which serves as one of our key documents for professional development for teachers, and there's a version in Spanish that could be used and shared with parents that we normally share with them as part of our meetings, including. So I entertain any questions you may have now related to what I presented on the second state assessment website.
Ms. Gilpas?
Thank you. Thank you. So as far as the improvement plan and the 5 bullets here, is there anything that's new on this improvement plan?
Some of them are continuing developing, and some of them are ones, for example, the real academies are ones that may have been strategies specific to sites, and you probably remember sites sharing some of the Saturday programs or Saturday academy stuff that they had. We're looking at having more the district level type of implementation to capture as a district using all these other funding sources to capture more. So some of them were initiated, some of them are going to become district level now that we have a team of EL coaches that will help drive that process and that initiative.
So in the past, I think you talked about how reading was real low for a lot of the students. So how does reading fit in to a student being reclassified?
So we review data on 2 different assessments, the SPEC and the LPAC, and the SPEC addresses the language, including whether students are reading at the comprehension level that to show mastery of the grade level standards. So obviously they need to show performance there for reading. They also need to show it on our district benchmark, which is the start reading, and in the primary grades, the DLA. But it is part of the state assessment for language as well. So reading is going to impact the state metrics across the. It's not just exclusive to SBAC for ELA. It is also critical for on the LPAC end. How does it impact the classification? If the students are not reaching the required level to be able to say you are performing at a level where the district can say confidently, we're ready to reclassify because we have met the required criteria, then they won't be able to. So we won't impact that. And that is a local criteria that was determined. I mean, some districts may have writing, some districts may have all of it, but in our district, our emphasis was progress in developing the Lexile to show that you have comprehension at the rigor expected for your level standards.
So then reading also is an issue that's keeping a lot of our English language learners from reclassifying. So then what are we doing in that area? And I know you went over a little bit, but just in a nutshell, what are we doing to work on that to help these students? I'm sure you're doing it. I just would like to hear what it is. If I could.
And I can share from the perspective of additional diagnostic assessments that are going to help us understand if a student goes on to on grade by grade and they're not hitting the grade level. We're working with our staff to make sure that the student doesn't meet a particular level, then what is impacting that progress and getting more diagnostic. If you're in second or third grade, but you're not reading on that grade level, you may need to go down to the required assessment for first grade, or even down to kinder to see where the hole is, where the gap is, so we can then act. And perhaps Ms. Ansel would like to share from the professional development and instructional perspective the strategies that would address that.
So the other part is we need to remember that language is part of reading. So that language development. So that like the whole idea behind the LSL Space Camp is to leverage that language from that content, using that content and how do we lift the language from it so that the students develop it. We've added on just Monday, one of the things is we make sure we connected everything that we've been doing through our LCAP and our teacher expectations for our teachers through our professional development. We identified essential standards so that our teachers focus on those essential standards at a minimum so that the students reach mastery in reading and math. And then we shared the new structure of our assessment calendar, which will give the opportunities for the teachers to go deeper and not just base it on our level, but why it answering that question of the why. Why are our students? And then with our, even though the EL coaches, they were part of our LCAP last year, we only were able to hire 2. And so this year we have a team of 6 now. So now they're developing and understanding what their area of focus is going to be in addition to the criteria for reclassifying or the compliance pieces, but how do they develop the teachers and add the strategies in the classroom?
Thank you, because that's what I was going to ask about. I think the teacher component and the support that the teacher gets in the classroom to assist these students. Thank you.
Mrs. Garcia?
Well, thank you, Mr. Hernandez. I appreciate that you give us all these numbers, and it's just like going, like I said before, going on a scale. Nobody wants to get on that scale because we all kind of see the reality here. But I'm really pleasantly surprised that writing is high because usually when I've seen LPAC, the students don't do well in writing. And in this case, it's like reading was the one that was not letting them progress further. But I think I also see that we've approved a lot of STORM, right? I think in this district, we have, in all your guidance has been that our schools have decided to use this extracurricular with the STORM. And I don't know much about STORM. So I know Step Up to Writing. I don't know STORM. But I'm assuming that it's working because I think we're seeing the results here that the schools are that have been using it are actually improving in their writing. And I think, Miss Anzo said that during you're tying everything back in, right? Even during summer, you're getting some language in, of course, as a content, but also you're leveraging that reading. And the writing, I heard the writing a lot, which is really wonderful. So, and the other question, of course, then I think it was already answered. You have ELD coaches, but the question for me was, were you fully staffed? Was it's supposed to be one ELD coach per site, or is it just a shared responsibility? What is that?
Two schools.
So 6 coaches.
Okay, so they're sharing a coach.
So we have in addition to our 6 EL coaches, which is a new action that we added to our LCAP last year, we have 12 instructional coaches. So each school has their instructional coach. This is an additional support to that.
Yes, and that's wonderful because it's wonderful. I didn't have that in my sight. The other thing is and maybe you don't know this answer, but teachers must confirm at above grade level. Do you find that might be some issues sometimes with teachers when they do their report cards that one student that doesn't turn anything in, but is really smart, but doesn't turn anything in, but doesn't do any work, but does, the grade, it doesn't reflect his actual performance. I mean, I found that a couple of times in my career where there have been those students that are very bright and they just don't do any work. And so the grading when it comes down to grading, their grades don't reflect actually what they know, but because of their performing in classroom isn't so great that the teacher has to mark them, needs improvement, or doesn't give them the grade that shows their knowledge, I guess. Do you find any teachers that are not confirming that they're above grade level, but yet they've mastered the LPAC and the...
We don't have that be a significant issue. The majority of teachers that are given the reclassification form to complete are marking it at or above, confirming that the student's progress is adequate in class as well. We do not require a specific grade. Like I know some districts or high schools must have a C or B in language
Passing, at least.
to be able to be considered. That's not the case here.
Oh.
If there is a conflict between a teacher's perception and the performance on the required assessments to reclassify, then a conversation happens between the administrator and the teacher.
Right.
Because if we have, and then they look at other sources. If the student is showing it in multiple assessments, then that is weighed even higher because it's not just one opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sorry. Thank you for the report. I mean, it's kind of, if I'm understanding this right, it looks like we've been holding our own on the reclassification, which I guess goes to show that when we put our mind to something or put our focus on something that we can and do, are able to have good results. My only sort of thing that comes to mind as I'm hearing all this is that, the teaching of reading can be a very technical kind of experience, and I'm wondering sometimes if we're asking the right question, should we not maybe be asking, instead of looking at all the technical side of teaching reading, how do we make reading more exciting for young people? How do we motivate students to be excited about reading? I'm wondering if we're asking those questions or looking at it from that perspective, kind of a more holistic approach, and instead of the kind of complicated aspect of teaching reading, which can be complicated. And maybe we're doing it, I don't know. But if we're not, then that might be a good question to ask, because a lot of times, what we get depends on what questions we ask. Are we asking the right questions? I know my neighbor, who's a 6th grader with our district, who comes over a lot because she helps my wife clean the house and everything. She once said to me, I don't like reading. And I thought, well, that's kind of disheartening because she's a very bright young lady, very articulate, very smart, very social, and so, and I think, well, why don't you like reading? But, of course, I'm not going to push that issue with her. I might pay her to read, maybe, but I don't know. I said, to my wife, we should pay her to read a book, just come back and have her tell us what she read so that we have, have her read something that you've read that maybe is not too difficult to read. But I think it's great that we seem, if I understand this right, we seem to be holding our own, and it's good to hear that. The only question I had was, I didn't quite understand the difference between an IFEP and an RFEP. The explanation would be helpful.
So IFEP is determined when the students take the LPAC the first time, and they only take that can only happen that very first time they take the LPAC, because we do not know if they're coming in initially fluent or initially as ELs. If the I stands for initially fluent English proficient.
Oh, okay.
So if the students reach a scale on that initial assessment that we will begin administering this coming week to all our new kinders and TKers, or any student in a new grade or new to California will have to take it, then that scale or that result will let us know if they're a novice English learner, an intermediate English learner based on the scale range they fall in, or initially fluent. That determination can only happen at that point. RFEP stands for reclassified, R for reclassified fluent English proficient.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I understand the reclassified, but the IFEP. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. You answered most of my questions during the presentation. I just have one remaining, Dr. Hernandez. If you look at the 2022 reclassification candidate site, can you show that? I noticed that there are several schools that made large gains from the 21 count to the 22, LSL Community, Sanchez, Montebella, BRB, and Creekside. They made significant jumps. Comparable data. What can you attribute to this?
There's almost like a research project that we were in, that's in the works right now, because with support from our Yale coaches, we're investigating what practices they themselves have been implementing with enough frequency that have been established as patterns in the classroom that could be associated with progress. So it could be related to strategies, it could be related to a specific system of support that has been frequently maintained. So it's almost like a research project, because now we're investigating what variables could have impacted these results that we see specifically at those schools where there was those jumps. Anything else you'd like to add, Ms.
Yes. So I think it's fair to say the attention that was given to our English learners and the building the capacity, not just in our administrators, but our teachers. So that I think I'm going to give that credit to just building that knowledge around what we need to do in order to build language. And so just the example of how we opened up with the spotlighting of the LSL Space Camp. A lot of our teachers in making reading fun, just like Mr. Ocampo was asking earlier, that's the whole concept, is engaging our students in something that they're curious about, something that's going to build and develop their language, and they're wanting to talk about what they're working on. So that we've had that said, I think during the pandemic, when everything was shut down, we had our teachers attend science as a lever for language and literacy. So a lot of our teachers were understanding of the development of language and how to not just engage the student, but engage themselves, right? Because science is something that's fun and engaging. If I show a vocabulary card of evaporation,
it's going to be a very different experience if I show them in front of their desk, in the table, in the video, what evaporation looks like. And I'm not going to remember the card as much as I remember the experience. So that's that whole idea behind that science as a lever. That was one. The other one is we really, when during our IoT, we really focused on the EO roadmap and that policy and what it meant. We had our sites create an instructional vision for our English learners and how to acquire the language and taking it to the reading and the writing. So that was, I think, I would attribute a lot of that for the focus and the building the capacity of our staff.
Okay. No more question? No? Comment? Yeah, of course. Ms. Garcia.
So I also attended Science as a Lever, and I can attest that it is a very good way of developing language and getting the kids very interested. And I think William Frenzel was one of the teachers. So I think now we have him as a program manager, but he's definitely one of those MCOE presenters for Science as a Lever.
Actually, we have both of them. Ms. Porter was also one of our trainers.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Good job.
I'm just gonna say that Ms. Santos has a copy that provides you a little more detail for SBAC, ELA, and math, as well as the comparative LPAC. You can see the gain reflects the schools that had the highest percentages performance on the three assessments. So for your reference, so you can review that.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hernandez. The second presentation is committee results from local indicators, state dashboard.
So as part of our state accountability system, I have presented to you in prior years information related to the state dashboard. The state dashboard reports were suspended during the pandemic years, the past couple of years, and there was nothing reported publicly based on state indicators that reflect progress by our students academically, in terms of suspensions, in terms of chronic absenteeism. None of that was reported. This year, it will be reported again, and that will be public around December. But one of the other requirements is reporting to you in a public meeting, the results on our district local indicators. We have 5 areas that are priorities included on the dashboard that we report to the state we measured ourselves, that were not part of the state metrics that were academic in nature or tracked by the state. These are related to the following areas, and I will just go priority to priority and let you know what our current standing or based on 21, 22 was on these local indicator areas that are reported on the state dashboard. By reporting this to you, then I can go into the portal when they open that for us, and I can indicate we met the criteria by having reported it to you, which is what's happening tonight. And it's an extension from our presentation to you when we approved the LCAP back in June. And then this is again information related to our local indicators. So priority 1 will addresses whether the district had appropriately assigned teachers, access to curriculum aligned instructional materials, and safe, clean, and functional school facilities. And we basically give ourselves a rating in terms of whether there were any misassignments of teachers of English learners, total teacher misassignments, and any vacant teacher positions. And we has 0. Percentage of students without access to their own copies of standards aligned instructional materials for use at school and at home, that was 0. And the number of identified instances where facilities did not meet the good repair standard, including deficiencies and extreme deficiencies, all as reported on the school accountability report card, those were all 0s. You probably have heard the Williams inspections, and the Williams inspections that will be happening soon in our district for the selected schools address these 3 areas that are supposed to be reported. That's all priority number 1. Priority number 2 is a self-reflection tool for implementation of state academic standards, and is divided into several sections. The first section is a rating from 1 at exploration and research phase to full implementation and sustainability. So this first area that we had to rate ourselves on was whether the district was making progress in providing professional learning for teachers to the recently adopted academic standards and or curriculum framework. And the general rating that was marked or selected was from initial implementation to full implementation and sustainability. And we had to give ourselves a rating for the different content areas: ELA, ELD, math, science, and history, social science. That's the first part of priority number 2. The second part of priority number 2 has to do with the same content areas and students having access to aligned academic standards or curriculum frameworks used in the classroom. So we have full implementation and sustainability because we have the materials that are standards aligned for these areas and accessible to all students. The third point that is part of priority number 2 is rating the local educational agencies or the district's progress in implementing policies or programs to support staff in identifying areas where they can improve in delivering instruction aligned to the standards or curriculum frameworks. And in that area is one that we have some work to continue, and because we're at that point in all areas for these content areas at initial implementation. And the last part related to priority number 2 is rating the district's success at engaging in the following activities with teachers and school administrators during this past school year, in terms of identifying the professional needs, identifying as a group and then as a whole, and then identifying professional needs of individual teachers and providing support for teachers on the standards they have not yet mapped. So we're initial implementation to full implementation of those areas. Moving on to priority number 3, we have several sections that we needed to report. Section 1 is building relationships. And we basically had to describe or rate ourselves in terms of the strengths and progress in this area, and identifying a focus area for improvement, including how the LEA will improve the engagement of underrepresented families. In this area, we had to rate the progress in developing capacity, in creating welcoming environments, in supporting staff to learn about each family's strengths, cultures, languages, and goals, and then rating the progress in developing multiple opportunities for the district and sites to engage in two-way communication with families, educators, and accessible. So in that case, we rated full implementation. And I want to point out, if you refer back to the LCAP, the language described in this priority around family engagement is very evident in the actions under the different goals that are included in our plan. Section 2, building partnerships for student outcomes. And again, this one has to do with the similar ones, the similar areas or content area, but in this case, It's not about building relationships, it's about building partnerships for student outcomes. Again, how we're building the capacity, how we're providing families information, how we're implementing policies to discuss the progress of students, and how the families are able to understand and exercise their legal rights and advocate for their own students. Examples of this are information that we provide, for example, during DLAC meetings, during ELAC meetings at the sites, during school site council meetings. All these are intended to strengthen those partnerships based on student progress and outcomes. And then the last section related to priority 3 is seeking input for decision making. And you know, you've heard us discuss how we involve before we would call them stakeholders. How do we include our educational partners? And that is the greatest example I would provide related to how we include our community in the development of our main plan, the LCAP. So these content areas that are rated here, that work from full implementation to full implementation and sustainability, are well represented in terms of the process we use to involve our educational partners in the development of our main plan. Priority number 6 has to do with school climate. And I brought you some examples from surveys that were administered as part of our LCAP development process last year. And here we have to include evidence from the administration and analysis of a local school climate survey that captures perceptions of school safety and connectedness. So here are some examples. 82% of the students reported that they felt connected with other students. So we do have a student survey that is administered twice a year where they ask questions like this one. So I'm just giving you a few examples. 85% of the parents reported that they're aware that there's a counselor at their site available to support if needed. So you've heard parents say they would like support in counseling. So we surveyed them, and that was part of the parent survey in the spring. 92% of the parents reported that they feel welcome to participate in their child's instruction. And then 90% of teachers reported that they're aware of how to support social emotional needs. You can see that the language here, again, is about school climate, about feeling welcome and feeling safe. And these are examples that are included in our report. Finally, priority 7 that we also have to report to you is access to a broad course of study. And in this case, 100% of our students were enrolled and instructed in the program chosen by parents. The parents can select if they want their children to go into an English-only setting, a structured English setting, a one-way, a dual immersion, or a newcomer setting. And 100% of our parents make that choice to show access to the program they want for their course of study. 100% of students had access to instructional time, and all schools were provided intervention to address student needs, the students to address needs determined by staff during our SST meetings, our IEP meetings, or 504 plan meetings. So in general, this is a report to you based on the priorities that are included on our local indicators review, for which we will indicate having met as reported to you. And that will be the secondary part of the dashboard reported this late fall, around December time. I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Questions? No? See?
So, thank you. So we're saying you ask, you ask, you ask. But anyways, thank you, Dr. Hernandez. So who does the calculating of all of these answers, or where we stand?
So
Is there a committee? Is it?
we collect the survey, the electronic surveys go out to our students and to our staff, the teachers and classified, and we send a paper version and an electronic version. This year we sent an electronic version through the students to the parents. So we do a tabulation in the department. The team in Ed Services looks at all those reports, and we have a matrix that is used with the highlights of the specific levels of feedback that then is shared back with the sites, and the principals incorporate those percentages in their own school plan. So it's a team in the department that puts that together. And then we work in collaboration with the sites to reflect it there too.
Thank you. Good job.
No questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Hernandez.
You're welcome. Thank you.
People with comments concerning items on the authorization agenda and non-agenda items. There will be a 10-minute limit for individuals and 10-minute limit on productive comments. There is a motion on one's time to other individuals. Individuals wishing to address the Board of Trustees on authorization agenda items and other items may do so at this time. 6:50. Mr. Joe Lopez.
Thank you, Board President Jimenez, esteemed board members, Superintendent Koenig, and cabinet colleagues. I'm here, actually, before I move on, I was going to go a little bit off script here to say that it was very neat at the beginning. We saw the presentation of the space camp. It was very neat seeing Edie Porter and Will Franzel starting from the beginning, planning it, and just what it turned into. So it was, they were planning it in the office where I happened to be present. It was just so neat just seeing it develop and then seeing it on social media and seeing this final product. So it was a really cool project. With that being said, I'm here to thank you all for just the opportunity that you've given me to work in the HR department as coordinator. I'm honored, I'm humbled, a little scared, but maybe excited. I was talking to Mr. Abbasi here about being more excited about this new opportunity in my career. And I think that I have a lot of people to thank, that have really helped me out, especially my colleagues currently and in the past in the EdTech department. They really were supportive. Celia Salinas Garcia, Ben Cogswell, and Josh Harris. And also the other part of this, I think, that played a role in me getting this position is the leaders in ATA and the union, how they've supported me, and they've really encouraged me about collaborating. People like that go back to John Aaron, Estela Mercado Garcia, Jaime Pastorista. So I really hope that I can do justice to the expectations. And finally, I want to thank Mr. Duran and his team for being so welcoming and supportive as I learned a lot of new things that are a little bit different than teaching. And I hope that I can do justice to what you were expecting. So thank you very much. I know I got to say thank you to most of you at convocation, but Mr. Mercado, I wanted to make sure that I also said thank you to you. So thank you for this opportunity and have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, Rebecca Alison.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for my son, Jack. He's a third grader at Creekside, and I just wanted to quickly commend all the work that Mr. Gonzalez and Ms. Moreno have been doing. They've been working tirelessly, and I'm very proud of them. So first of all, I just wanted to say how awesome they are doing. And this is really not a reflection of their leadership, but I haven't heard anything so far as having to do with volunteers being allowed on campus. I think it's time for our community to be allowed again on our campuses. Me and my husband have both been volunteers since my son was in kindergarten. He has been a teacher, a music teacher, because we don't have music teachers on our campus or any of our campuses. And I've also loved helping my son's teachers because we all know that they need help, especially during this time. And I keep hearing that COVID cases are highest in the 93905 area. And that is why our community members have not been allowed back on campus. But as research states that it's unfortunate, but COVID cases are highest among Blacks and Hispanics. So that's something that, unfortunately is the case. So as we're waiting for COVID cases to fall in the 1905 to allow our community members to go back on campus, it's almost like saying let's, clean the state color, and that's something we can't do, and thank God for that. So, I just, if you look around at other districts, they're allowing community members to come back. They're allowing volunteers. And so if we're not doing that in the Allenstown, what are we saying about our district? What are we saying about our community? What's that message? Okay, so I think my time is up. So thank you so much for all your service.
We end time at 6:55. Association comments. Additional Teacher Association.
Ok. Voy a hacer algo un poquito raro. En parte de mis comentarios esta noche, sé que hay traducción, pero siento que como vicepresidente del sindicato no hay mejor manera de dar la bienvenida a la comunidad y a los niños del distrito de Alisal, sino en su primer idioma, que viene siendo el español, un idioma del cual como maestra me siento orgullosa. Entonces, ahí en Cyrus, donde me están traduciendo al inglés, también sé hablar en inglés, entonces me voy a traducir al inglés también. Entonces, no voy a dar este pequeño lujo y privilegio, pero primeramente quiero reconocer a la administración del distrito, a la mesa directiva del distrito escolar de Alisal, al personal de sindicatos, a los maestros, por dar la bienvenida ayer a los maestros y al personal que apoya a nuestros niños en la convocación que tomó lugar ayer en Sherwood Hall. Una cosa que es difícil es dar la bienvenida pues a la comunidad, a nuestros niños. Esa es la oportunidad que como maestros hoy tuvimos esa oportunidad de dar la bienvenida a ustedes como padres y primeros maestros de sus hijos, a las aulas, a las escuelas y dar esa bienvenida calurosa a sus hijos y les damos las gracias por tener esa confianza, esa fe en nuestros maestros y en nuestro distrito de proveer esa educación increíble que se le va a dar a su niño, porque este es un distrito del cual yo como maestra, después de mis días, ya perdí la cuenta de cuántos años tengo aquí, pero los 20 y tantos que tengo ha sido un orgullo y un placer definitivo para mí y yo sé que para muchos de nuestros maestros educar a sus niños. Okay, I'm going to translate myself. I'm the vice president of the Alisal Teachers Association. So on behalf of President Jaime Pastoriza, I want to thank this district administration, the school board of the Alisal Union School District, the union leadership, and for welcoming the teachers and the support personnel to the beginning of the 22-23 school year yesterday at Sherwood Hall in what is our first convocation back after this incredible pandemic. But one opportunity that we really have is to give our community, our parents and our students that big welcome. And so as a teacher, on behalf of myself and the teachers in the Alisal Union School District, we want to welcome the Alisal community. We want to welcome back our students, and today was our first great opportunity to do that. I think there was a couple of criers in PK and K, but we loved it. It was incredible. So we welcome you. We look forward to working with you as parents. You are their first teachers, and I can't say anything but how proud I am and how honored I am to have been working in this district for more than 20 years. And to work with an incredible group of teachers that have and administrators that have this tremendous commitment to the children of the Alisal community. And so welcome parents, welcome children, and thank you.
California School Employee Association, Chapter 577. United Substitute Teacher Not sure. Okay. Board member and superintendent reports. Mr. Ocampo. I just wanted to state that I was the competition, yesterday. It was really well attended. The teachers were really about the treatment as it should be. But I noticed is that we have a very young, teaching staff, or just not just teachers, but the district staff in general, which is good, because we have the energy of youth. A lot of energy and a lot of teaching stuff. So I was glad to see that, that our staff and you other guys so young to really go back and look. I thought that the program was well organized. And also I thought it was well received by the people who were there. There was plenty of food, which was always good. Never go wrong with food. And the event was, for my part, it was enjoyable, and I thought it was also very productive. I think there were some good speakers, some good things. We had some prior students also talk about their experiences, and we speak about their experiences at the district. So it was a good event, and I'm very proud and happy to be in this performance.
Thank you. Thank you. I was also there for the first one and it was fantastic. It was really great. I'm sure the second competition was also well. So the first thing that I need to do is I wanted to apologize to Trustee Ocampo. Yes. Yes, because I officiated the meeting in the absence of Mr. Jimenez, and I lost my place for a second on the agenda, thinking that we were in doing board reports where we normally don't ask questions, and he had a question and he was entitled to an answer, and I didn't allow it. I was in the wrong, and I did that publicly, so I want to apologize publicly to you, Mr. Ocampo, and I feel very comfortable doing that because of the respect that I believe that this board has with one another. And we support one another. And it was brought to my attention by another board member after the meeting. And so I wanted to do that. But I did also want to say that, when we're doing a meeting, you get nervous. However, we can support one another by asking for either a point of order or a point of clarification so that the meeting runs the way that it's supposed to run. And I think that this board has done an excellent job because everybody so far has had an opportunity to be the president. And I like that because at some boards, you don't do that. You never get to be the president. So I wanted to say I apologize and do you accept my apology? Thank you.
I'm sort of touched by your comment. Thank you for, feeling comfortable apologizing and for just speaking up, how you felt about that.
I do, and I enjoy working with you all so much, and we have that level of respect here, and I know that the public sees that, right? Can I get a nod if it's so? Thank you so much, and so I'm proud of that, and that's why I'm comfortable. So thank you for accepting my apology, and that's going to be it for me.
No.
Yeah, yes, I too was at the convocation both with Mr. Ocampo, and I have to say it was a wonderful experience seeing all of the performances, top-notch performances. I've seen them before, but just going on stage, I showed all the beautiful performances, and just wanted to shout out to all the students that were there performing that day. And also congratulations to all the teachers, all the site principals, all the classified staff, students and parents for their first day of the new school year 22-23. We survived, we did it, and I think everybody, we haven't had any complaints, so yay for all the students and staff. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I did want to go back to the comment I made because the question that Mr. Ocampo had, I was able to talk to Mr. Koenig, and I believe that the question was answered already for you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the question. Well, it's
Answered. Okay.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the staff for taking care of it.
Okay. Okay, we move to number five, consent agenda. We need a motion to consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Mercado,
Second,
any comment completion? No?
Yes.
Yes? Yes. Okay.
For the Buckmore land disposition, Mr. Koenig, we haven't, if I read correctly, the estimated time will be to close the escrow, it will be sometime in the fall.
The execution of the Buckmore land disposition agreement will give us the authority to move forward with escrow and transfer of the property.
Okay, I read correctly that, that will be, assuming things are right, it will be sometime in the fall. So assuming that it takes place in the fall, when can the district begin the actual work?
The district can do what?
When can the district, begin developing that area to the early childhood center?
Well, as soon as we own the property, we'll be begin developing the area. I think, it's a two-stage, the stage one and the stage two. The phase one, I don't know. What the primary milestones for this project, Mr. Boston?
So I think we can move with both cases simultaneously, Mr. Corner, because we have required evidence now. We have the approval, we have agreements for the land acquisition, and we have the funding available. So we are going to talk to our architects, the construction company, and move forward very quickly with that.
So when do you think this, assuming everything goes according to plan, if you will? We have a new, center.
Actually, fall, this coming fall is the possibility for moving forward. So probably September would be the timeline for us.
Thank you.
Start building this. Another question? No? Mr. Ocampo? No? Okay. All those in favor say aye. 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 Consent agenda approved by 5 votes. Then we move to committee. Okay. Number one is the services, information. 2022-23, ununderstood budget. And then we have university districts 45 days after.
So after the government signs the budget, they give us a 45-day window to revise our budget in school district. And there's an education board behind that takes us through that. The only difficulty is sometimes after we receive the school budget, we don't have all the information to revise our budget. So what we're doing at this point is just to make the legal obligation. We are highlighting only the major revisions to the budget that we need to make. We already know that these are the basic estimates for some of the new monies that we are getting. When I say new money, it means there are two one-time discretionary block grants that we are going to get. One is for music, arts, and instructional materials. That's in the amount of $5.8 million. We're also going to get one-time discretionary block grant, and that's for learning loss recovery.
That's about $16.1 million. ELOP money or the Extended Learning Opportunities Grant that we have been getting in the last 2 years, we are going to get some additional money in that grant. That is in the amount $18.3 million. One more revision that we always make to our budget is LCFF calculation. But the difficulty this year is we have not received a model or the calculator for making calculations. As soon as we make that calculation, we're going to come back to Board of Education and make a presentation. And that is significant because that is our operational money or unrestricted general fund money. And that is going to revise our COLA calculation, cost of living adjustment calculation. We have been making projections for the COLA, but state gave us much bigger COLA this year. We were projecting that bigger COLA. Now we know how much the COLA is, but the programming needs time. There's a company called FitNet. They provide the FitNet calculator or the CFF calculator. They have to reprogram the model of the program for the average daily attendance. That becomes the basis for our calculation. Normally we get ADA multiplied by the factors, but this year, because of declining enrollment, state has a new formula. We can use average of the last 3 years, every period attendance. There's some difficulty in making programming changes to the formula they have in the system. As soon as they release the LCFF calculator, we are going to make calculation and come back to Board of Education and make a formal presentation. That's going to be a presentation with some numbers and calculations. But for now, we thought that is significant that we come to you and present to you some of the big highlights of the budget. The state budget also has some smaller programs, but we do not have the detail of making calculations. And that happens every year that after state budget, there are some trailer bills or some language has to be cleaned up. State and California Department of Education, they provide guidelines after the fact. And then we include that in our budget as soon as we get the information and knowledge of making calculations. This is information on the item. There is no action required at this point.
Mr. Cohn, so now we're going to be getting several one-time discretionary fund money. Has the staff have a plan to address learning loss?
Yes, the staff has begun to work on this. This is actually new work. This is a wonderful problem to have. The Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, this can address some of the things we were talking about earlier. We can fund English learner academies during all of our breaks in instruction, winter, spring, summer, through the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. And oh, by the way, there's still, after we fund those, there's still tens of millions of dollars left. The Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Grant, this is a terrific opportunity. $5.8 million. We've got 4 years to spend the money. And, I think we came up with at least $5.8 million worth of ideas. And we'll be bringing the plan for how we'd like to spend that money back to the board later. The Learning and Recovery Emergency Block Grant, again, this is something we have to spend within the next 4 years, and it's going to be used to address the learning loss that we discussed earlier. And we're going to come up with programs that have to deal with a lot of restrictions on it. But one is, every program is going to involve having to hire teachers, and the teachers, as we learned when we were trying to hire people for summer school, the teachers have a lot to do, and they have lives, and they would like to do some things other than work. So we're going to come up with programs, and we'll come up with programs that we can support, and we will be back to discuss those with the board within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Mr. Cooley, can I add one more thing? I just want to add that this program is categorical program. It means that it says restrictions. We cannot use this money for any purpose. There are guidelines for spending this money, some restrictions. So it's not operating money. It has some specific use, and we can use that money only for that allowable use. And Monica is my best friend right now because she has $40 million to spend.
Okay, yeah. Next item, future agenda item. Any board member would like to add items to the future agenda? Mrs. Garcia?
Okay, so I'm gonna circle back. I know we just heard that we have all this money, but then you went and ruined it by telling me it's categorical. But, and you know, okay. But I'm gonna circle back to safety audits. At one point I had asked for safety audit and I was, you know, former principal, former VP, current teacher, or parent, grandparent, thank you very much. And I want to circle back to that. So if we have any extra money, I think we kind of have to invest in that. So that is what I'd like to see on some future agenda item, to see what progress we have in that area, safety audits.
I said, I want to see this, it focuses on the June about this, I think it might be a bit sure, put it on as a future agenda item. And the reason for that was that my because I know that we have 3 interns, you know, that have been working with us for monitoring for universities. University, 3 young people that have been working in the for years. But my initial desire was to have an informal meeting with these 3 interns and talk to them and see if there's an interest. And they would have an interest in coming to if they have an interest in possibly bringing them, they may not, they may not have an interest. I don't know. You know, my intent was to learn more about the internship program through them. And, you know, I really would like them to maybe just some biographic information as to who they are, what are their professional goals, and also importantly, try to get them exposed after the 2 years to the teachers. But this is part of the great to have them come to Brighton and talk about those 3 areas that I just mentioned. Kind of the way, at least from my perspective, I think it would be humanized to get more of what we do. Not that we don't put each other around, but it's fine as it is. But it's nice, I think, to have people come to us like interns or everything and talk to us and get to know them on a personal level. So to humanize what we do here instead of always talking about work, of course, and we have to talk about that. How we mitigate it and so on. But it's also I think, really important nice bringing that home. So that's my intent. So, you know, so my intent again is to have an initial meeting with them to see if they have an interest in coming to us. If they do, then we have to force them to come, right? So, but that was my intention for that. So. Anyone else? No? Okay. The comments, restriction of environment, what will be comments and 20 minutes limit on public comments. There is no segment on one stand to other individuals. Individual reasons who argues that board addressed it in closed session agenda item. And goes to withdraw at this time. Start time. 7:19. And time 17. Then adjourn to closed session at 7:21. Thank you.